That statement and the Prime Minister's attitude during the political standoff have only magnified the divisions in the country. The protesters remain determined that they will force wholesale change in Jordan. Nisreen Al-Shamaili, AlJazeera, Amman.
Politicians in Taiwan say they feel threatened by China's plan to boost defence spending by 13%. Beijing played down the island nation's concerns, but Taiwan is urging the United States and Europe to sell them more weapons to develop their own arsenal. China says this year's defence budget will total 600 billion yuan. That's $91.5 billion US dollars. A bomb has exploded in a mosque packed for Friday prayers in northwest Pakistan. 9 people were killed after the bomb exploded in Peshawar province. 30 others were wounded, and officials are expecting the number of fatalities to grow. Also in Pakistan, mourners have gathered in Islamabad for the funeral of the former Minorities Minister, Shahbaz Bhatti. Bhatti was shot dead after calling for reforms to Pakistan's controversial blasphemy law. Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani was in attendance and described Bhatti's murder as a black day in Pakistan's history.
The Pakistan flag is a symbolic that the green side and the white side. The white side represents minorities. And when I heard this news, I was totally shocked.
This is Al Jazeera. These are the stories making the headlines. At least 30 people have been killed in the Libyan town of AlJazeera near Tripoli. It comes after forces loyal to Muammar Gaddafi attacked opposition fighters who had been in control. Libyan state television is reporting that pro-Gaddafi forces have now taken the town from rebel hands. There's also been fighting in Gaddafi's stronghold, Tripoli. Security forces fired tear gas on protesters who had taken to the streets after Friday prayers. There have been demonstrations elsewhere in the Arab world, including in Yemen. Protesters in the capital Sana'a called for the end of the veteran president's rule. And in northern Yemen, it's reported at least 2 people have been killed during anti-government protests. Protests, have also continued in Cairo's Tahrir Square. The new Prime Minister, Essam Sharaf, addressed the crowd and vowed to work hard to give in to protesters' demands and said he would step down if he couldn't. In the capital, Baghdad, protesters demanded improved services, better pay and an end to corruption. In Iraq's southern city of Basra, security forces used water cannon and batons against anti-government demonstrators. And people in Jordan have also taken to the streets. Crowds in the capital, Amman, have been demanding political reforms and a constitutional monarchy. Jordan's Prime Minister has rejected opposition calls to strip King Abdullah of his powers. The government has made several concessions in the last month, but many say that they don't go far enough. Bomb blast has accompanied Friday prayers at a mosque in northwest Pakistan. 9 people were killed in Nowshera district. The explosion happened as food was being distributed to the poor. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Also in Pakistan, mourners gathered for the funeral of the former Minorities Minister Shahbaz Bhatti. Security was tightened around Islamabad, where the funeral service was being held. Bhatti was shot dead on Wednesday. He'd been calling for reforms to Pakistan's controversial blasphemy law. Politicians in Taiwan say they feel threatened by China's plan to boost defence spending by 13%. Beijing played down the island nation's concerns, but Taiwan is urging the United States and Europe to sell them more weapons to develop their own arsenal. China says this year's defence budget will total 600 billion yuan. That's $91.5 billion US dollars. Inside Story is coming up next with Sami Zaidan. Do stay with us.
His forces move on revolutionaries while the International Criminal Court moves to investigate him. Is ICC involvement an incentive for the Libyan leader to respect human rights or to fight for survival to avoid prosecution? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Sami Zaidam. Well, protests in Libya continue to be met with harsh violence. The death toll, well, it's now topped 1,000. And the International Criminal Court is warning Colonel Gaddafi he'll be held criminally responsible for his regime's reaction to protesters since February the 15th. Alan Fisher has more.
The Office of the Prosecutor decided to open an investigation into alleged crimes against humanity committed in Libya.
Holding the Gaddafi regime to account, the International Criminal Court is now officially investigating all that has gone on over the past days and weeks. Hundreds have been killed in the uprising against the 40-year rule of Colonel Gaddafi, thousands injured. The chief prosecutor believes crimes against humanity have been committed.
The office will investigate who are the most responsible for the most serious incidents, for the most serious crimes committed in Libya.
This is just another step by the international community to put pressure on Colonel Gaddafi and Libya. The prosecutor believes his investigation can be complete in months, not years. He will then present his evidence to the judges who'll decide if arrest warrants should be issued. And he sent a warning to the rebel groups. We're watching you too. The United Nations Security Council referred Libya to the ICC. The chief prosecutor believes there is enough evidence to dig deeper. He's highlighted several incidents and allegations of mass killings. The 15th of February in Benghazi, the 16th of February in Misrata, Al-Baida, Derna, Ajdabaya. On the 18th, again in Misrata, and the 20th in Tripoli and Al-Zawaya. Speaking to AlJazeera, he highlighted what is under investigation.
Crime against humanity is a widespread attack against civilian population. So if you have security forces shooting civilians in a square who are doing a demonstration, this is a crime against, this could be a crime against humanity.
The prosecutor believes the rapid call to investigate marks a dramatic change, that the world will act quickly when people are being killed, and those behind it will face justice. Alan Fisher, AlJazeera, the ICC in The Hague.
Well, let's join our three guests now to get more on this. From London, Mohammed Abdul Malik. He's the chairman of Libya Watch. That's a human rights organisation that monitors and collects evidence of human rights abuses in Libya. From Oxford, Sami Hermes, a visiting fellow at St Anthony's College at Oxford University. Mr Hermes writes extensively on revolutions across the Arab world and the impact of international intervention. And again from London, Mark Ellis, Executive Director of the International Bar Association. Mr Ellis comments regularly on international prosecution cases such as the ICC. Thank you all for joining us. If I could start with Mohammed, what sort of evidence of human rights abuses is there at this point?
Well, we don't even need to look on the 16th and 15th and 16th and 17th and after that of February. We can even go back to 1996 when Colonel Gaddafi massacred and killed 1,200 political prisoners in prison in the infamous Abu Slim massacre, which the world seems to have ignored. The brutality of Colonel Gaddafi and his regime doesn't need evidence, really, but I do understand.
But the ICC, sir, does, doesn't it? Of course, the ICC does need evidence, and they've said that they're looking at a specific number of cases. What sort of evidence is there